Hello everybody and welcome back to Leilani of Barbados. I took a break because I had to cover all of that craziness that happened last week, but I'm back here to finish up the Netflix series. I need to finish this up for you. Okay, let's go. The intro of this documentary, episode 5, starts out with Meghan talking about how as a child she was very lonely.
You know, when I look back at my own childhood, it was great, but I just remember feeling alone a lot.
Why would you smile like that when you say you were alone all the time? You're so creepy. That is a trend we saw with the podcast that she did with her friends, fellow narcissists we should call them, who only talked about how lonely they were as children and that they had to be stars because they were so lonely. And I guess she copied them like she copies everybody else, and that how she wanted Archie to not have that feeling so he could be in this big family and this lovely family that she loves so well. Of course, that's not true. It's very ironic and difficult to look at through the scope of she's in this Netflix series where she got paid $100 million for. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle signed an estimated $100 million deal with Netflix for their bombshell docu-series Harry and Meghan, according to reports by Forbes. Per the alleged agreement, the Duke and Duchess are expected to produce an array of content for the streaming giant, including documentaries, films, children's shows, docu-series, and more. She is where she wants to be. She never wanted to be in the royal family. That's a lie. She never really wanted to live in London. She's not sophisticated enough to appreciate that, and she's finding every excuse in the book. Everything went wrong, and she has no proof of it. Let's forget about the bullying and all the things that she did inside the royal family for a moment, because we have to look at the fact that this was her plan all along. Her plan was to leave the royal family and to be a star in Hollywood. That is her goal. Having such a close proximity to being a star and never being able to do it, she had to get it done. Okay, so the interviewer, who we never really see, I don't know if they only had one camera or why they couldn't have the camera on the interviewer because it was really badly done. I did not like the setup. Anyway, the interviewer asks her, "You were so close to your dad," and she sort of brushes it off. She's like, well, family is family, like whatever. But then she's going to go into writing him a letter, which is very interesting. The royal family, in fact the Queen, may she rest in peace, suggested that she write a letter to her dad to talk about how privacy is important to her, or like she doesn't want anybody to talk about her. So because of that suggestion, she decides to write him a letter. Girl, not all families are equal. It is definitely a thing with some families where you can write them a letter and it's private. They appreciate that you wrote them a letter and express how you felt and whatever. That's how the royal family is. That's not how your family is. So when that suggestion was made, all you had to say was, "You don't know my dad. We be Hollywood. He's gonna leak it." He's gonna make some coin off of it, some money real quick. We are not you.
As a family, we're not subject to royal protocol.
So she ends up doing it, right? And then blaming the royal family. In fact, the Queen and all the advisors and Prince Charles, she names them actually for this. Funny how she couldn't name anybody for the other stuff she accused them of. Girl, that's you. That's your bad. Instead, she goes into this whole diatribe about, and then my agent, it was misdelivered, it was misresponded, and I just knew it wasn't him. She said it was 5 pages of a letter, and he only redacted certain things and sold certain things to the newspapers. That, again, is your bad. You should be like, look, I'm going to write this 5 pages, but it's literally going to have nothing in it that he can use against me. So I can already tell that everything that comes after this is going to be false. All this moving to South Africa. Oh, we looked at South Africa. We looked at New Zealand. And we were going to support the Commonwealth and be there for the Commonwealth because I'm a woman of color, you see, all of a sudden, she's a woman of color. We're not going to get paid, of course. We just want to do our thing for you, the royal family. While you were debating which part of the world, you spin the globe and the globe just spins. You're like, oh, whoop. That might be a Commonwealth place. It's a Commonwealth. While you were doing that, you were enjoying security paid for by the taxpayers of Canada until they realized that they didn't want to do that. And that's another thing. The idea that they are so special, everyone's trying to get to them, is so crazy that they made a documentary based on how these people are super important when they're not. It's mind-blowing. We have the lawsuit, and there's a whole bunch of back and forth about that and how the royal family didn't want to pay for their lawyers. So they had to hire their own lawyers. Of course not. Oh, because it was their fault, because they actually told her to write the letter, and this is what the outcome was of her advice on writing the letter. So they should pay for it. But they were like, hell to no, like, that's your people. You should know how to deal with your people. So as the devil is working hard, Meghan Markle is working harder to manipulate poor Harry. He should be Baker acted. They decide to get away at bloody Christmas. I thought she said that she loved how it was a family and Archie would never be alone and he would have all this lovely family. Okay, so she gets away at Christmas with Archie to Vancouver Island, which they thought was going to be so safe. Harry is so out of for somebody who grew up in the public eye, I find him extremely out of touch. He said, the Paps don't even live in Vancouver Island. I looked and I saw that there's no Paps living here.
There wasn't a single paparazzi that lives on Vancouver Island. That was the reason we chose it. It's an island.
Why, God, is he talking like he just discovered the Pythagorean theorem? Why, in Jesus' name, Lord, is he pretending to have a brain? It's an island. Let me tell you about Barbados. Barbados, also famously an island. When the stars come down to Barbados to have their holidays, there are literal paps who have no hotel to stay in. You can see them on the beach, burnt to a crisp, just sitting there. I actually went and asked one of them who was from France, and she said she flew to Barbados and she has no hotel that she's staying in. She's living on the beach, honey. So the fact that he doesn't understand that, it's like a miracle to me. Like, how? And apparently, dun dun dun, paparazzi came and found them on Vancouver Island. But she's saying to Prince Harry, like, I am willing to do all these other things. The only problem is that every time we approach your dad with these other things, they're mysteriously leaked. And when they're mysteriously leaked, it compromises us. So we can't do that. So there goes New Zealand. There goes Canada. There goes South Africa. Why does that keep happening to you? Who's leaking it? Literally the only place they had left was Hollywood. Isn't that weird? And funny enough, moving to Hollywood granted them $100 million deals. By the way, I just want to mention in Canada, during that Christmas time, he jumped in the freezing waters of Vancouver.
You want me to put that on my todger?
I'm so cold. Was that right in the New Year?
Yeah, that was on the 1st of January.
If I had gone through the Todger frostbite thing and I was Prince Harry, I probably wouldn't take that risk for it to ever happen to me again. But there he is. No fear of Todgers. While Harry talks about this debacle with which country they could possibly move to or not move to, you can see that Meghan takes this huge sigh. And I can see in her eyes that she's thinking, that was so stressful to go through and manipulate Harry into thinking that there's no place on the globe that is safe for us except Hollywood. She's like, girl, I had to say everywhere was bad. You don't even know, except Montecito. And it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. I can see that when she's saying that. They go back and forth with this badly planned meeting with the Queen, which I think was their fault, that they weren't courteous enough to plan this properly, and it ended up that she was busy. Moving on. Oh, they said that if they were able to live anywhere and work half-half, that they would relinquish their titles. Super lie. The biggest lie they've ever told. They never planned to relinquish their titles. In fact, they knew that wherever they moved to, be it Commonwealth or not, they would have to merge their titles the whole time. This episode to me is like when a thief gets lazy and gets caught. They just got lazy and they stopped caring. They really got away with a lot. And again, it's because of the titles. So Harry is called to an emergency meeting with the Queen and the royal family where he's given 5 options.
Once I got there, I was given 5 options. 1 being all in, no change. 5 being all out. I chose option 3 in the meeting, half in, half out.
That's 3, right? Again, like, who is producing this? So I was given 5 options and he only tells us 3. But I do wonder, what were the other options? Like, was it groundskeeper? What were the other 2 options? I'm very curious because he left them out.
The meeting finished without any solidified action plan.
And then he goes on to talk about how very dare William shout at him. I thought that was neither here nor there. When people get passionate, they are allowed to shout. I mean, who are you? Where are we? Are we in school? Okay, are we going to be sent to the principal's office or the headmaster's office, depending on where you live? William shouted at me. How very, very dare he? He shouted at you because you're doing so much crap. Look at the amount of crap you're doing. Also, it's being published. All the things you're doing. Stop. Blah, blah, blah. Harry says that William bullied him out of the royal family. I mean, the gall of him to use the word bullying when Meghan herself has been accused of bullying people by waking them up at 5 in.the.morning and making their lives a living hell instead of tending to her children is beyond me that he could even use that word. The unmitigated gall! I want to say that my feeling towards Harry is that of pity. I do pity him. I think he knows not what he says. One thing to remember is that this is all about making excuses about why they left the royal family. So the press printed this and the press printed that, and that is why they had to leave. No. In this next segment, Meghan Markle talks about how...
And I remember looking at H. And oh my gosh, this is when a family and a family business are in direct conflict.
The key piece really is that they are willing to relinquish the titles if they are able to step back.
I'd mentioned that, if this wasn't going to work out, then we would be willing to relinquish our Sussex titles if need be.
This is all a setup for her documentary, her reality show. Drama happened to us. I really need this content because I'm trying to do a Netflix series. Okay, do you mind? Thank ya. Very embarrassingly, Prince Harry has to talk about how the purse strings have to be loosened up in order for him to sustain his life, and that is normal in the royal family. It sounds really sad that he, as a grown man, has no other way of making money unless people in the royal family, but also us, the taxpayers, dole it out to him. It makes him seem very inadequate. Okay, so this meeting happens and Meghan has to go back to Canada because Archie was left on his own.
I had to get back because Archie was in Canada.
How God did she find it necessary to leave Archie on his own? It just makes her seem like an asshole. I don't know, that she took this flight to the UK, uninvited, unsolicited, unapproved of, and then had to return to Canada because Archie was there on his own. Bitch, why did you leave your son there?
And it was only once Meg had left and gone back to Canada that it was then arranged that there was going to be a meeting at Sandringham on the following Monday.
She was not invited at the meeting. You understand?
Imagine a conversation, a round table discussion about the future of your life when the stakes were this high, and you as the mom and the wife and the target in many regards aren't invited to have a seat at the table.
It was clear to me that they planned it so that you weren't in the room.
Harry then has this meeting on FaceTime.
The hateful content about you on Twitter.
Misinformation is a global humanitarian crisis.
What? Misinformation is a global humanitarian... Run that back again.
Misinformation is a global humanitarian crisis.
No, you cannot be serious with this right now. A humanitarian crisis? Because as public figures, you get tweets about you that you don't agree with. This is a humanitarian crisis. He's gone completely wonky and loopy in Hollywood, man. But she sits there in this very relatable room where she's listening to the conversation because you cannot lose control of these people with all these handbags strewed around her. There's this whole ridiculous talk about bots and who botted who and how many bots they had and who was bought bots. And of course, we know that Meghan has a bot farm. And what is a bot farm, you might ask? Providing the same service as Click Farm, a bot farm uses less people by relying on bots, software that can be used to complete functions automatically with minimal human assistance. We know that she has that. Allegedly. Sunshine Sacks. We know that. It's another excuse, another atrocity. I mean, Harry continues to berate the royal family and say that they had ties to the press that made his life a living hell. He says that they called Meghan a gold digger, and he's conflating the gold digger with the other Igor word that starts with an N. Although they never said that, he's saying, oh, it's the same thing. No, bitch, you can say I'm a gold digger. That's not racist. A lot of women are called gold diggers who are white, blonde. You cannot conflate the two things. If they called her a gold digger for marrying you, that's not the same as calling her the N-word or even bringing her race into it. This next segment, she starts flexing on us, our poor people here.
I was going through the manual for our security team at home, and on one of the pages that I happened to flip to, it was about online monitoring, and they were like, if you see a tweet like this, please report it to head of security immediately. And it just said, Meghan just needs to die. Someone needs to kill her. Maybe it should be me. And you're just like, okay. That's like what's actually out in the world.
I don't even know why she even mentioned that. And some security guard had to save her, and she was crying, and he held her, one tear left eye, and all of that. I wish she had brought the security guard to be interviewed, because that would have given some credence to her story. That's a miss for her. I think it's very sad towards the end of this episode, because it's really up to her. It was her fault for not having made this work. To even invoke the Commonwealth is just to say a big F you. She could have done so much for us in the Commonwealth if she chose to. She never was going to do that. This is all about what she was not going to do. This Netflix series should be Harry and Meghan, what they were never going to do. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I stopped it here. I did not think it was necessary to go through this episode anymore. This episode, I would say my takeaway from it was that it was a very showing off episode, showing off about all the lies they had created and they were ready to tell, showing off about all the assets that they had, the assets that they left behind in terms of what they could have done for the royal family but did not do. Also trying to get the assets from from his dad to support them. This was a big flexing episode. When we say flexing, we say like showing off. Show off episode. 100 million for Netflix. That's all I'm going to say. I have another episode to get through, but I just wanted to drop this one on you. And don't forget to subscribe and press the bell notifications. Thank you guys so much for watching me, and I will have another episode of this, the last and final episode of this documentary, coming out very shortly. Thank you so much. Love you.